Zhao Zhou finally knew what kind of scam he had experienced. It turned out that Zhang Ming was not as rich and successful as he said. Not only that, but he also caused a disaster. He crashed Abner's Phaeton and urgently needed to buy a new one for Abner, which is the fundamental reason why he boasted about money-making and deceived him to get more than 600,000. But the worst thing now is that this bastard is dead. In other words, he can't get back his 620,000, not even a cent. At this time, his heart was painful, more painful than the wound on his body. Abner, who beat him violently, saw that he was no longer crazy as he was just now, and he was a little relieved, and said to him, "You can see clearly this time. I am going to drive away. There's nothing wrong with the car." Although Abner looked down on Zhao Zhou in his heart, Zhao Zhou's crazy state just now made him somewhat jealous. He also mixed up all the way, so he knows that this kind of person is actually very scary. If he really anger him, he is likely to desperately fight. So it is better not to provoke such a person, at least not to provoke him now. When Zhao Zhou heard his words, his heart was already gloomy. He didn't even dare to think about what he should do in a week. Because, after a week, some platforms are about to start asking for a repayment. By that time, he will not have the money, and he doesn't know how they will treat him. Seeing that he was in a daze, Abner seemed to be lost in a daze, so he didn't bother to talk nonsense with him anymore, so he got into the car and started and drove away. Zhao Zhou sat on the ground alone, smelling the exhaust left by the Phaeton car, tears streaming down his face. His tears kept streaming, mixed with blood and dust on his face, leaving 2 obvious tear marks on his face. His guy who drove a trailer dared to jump out of the car, walked to him, squatted down, patted him on the shoulder and asked, "Excellent, do you want me to call the police for you?" Zhao Zhou cried and said, "I'm done, the person who killed me is also dead. What's the point of calling the police?" The other party didn't know what he had gone through. At this time, he sighed softly and said, "Excellent, then can't you drag the car?" Zhao Zhou looked at him and yelled, "You're so FC King blind, didn't you watch the car and those people driving it away? I'm dragging a feather." The other party couldn't help but frowned and thought, if he had just yelled, he would have been beaten to death. He is kindly coming over to care about him now. Did he pretend to be with me? Okay, then you can pretend it yourself, I won't play with you. Thinking of this, he stood up and said to Zhao Zhou, "Then if you don't want to tow the truck, I will leave." Zhao Zhou came back to his senses and hurriedly said, "You return the 800 to me before leaving." The other party said angrily, "You are arguing with me, I don't need money to drive all the way. I drive a car in the repair shop. As long as I go out, the repair shop will assume that I have started to pick up the job, regardless of you. If the car is not towed, I have to report the income to the repair shop when I go back." Zhao Zhou angrily said, "I don't care about your reasons, it has nothing to do with me. I only know that I didn't let you tow the trailer, so you have to return my money to me." The other party was also anxious, and said in a huff, "I said you don't understand people's speech? The repair shop has regulations. As long as I take the truck, they will charge a fee. You asked me to return the money to you. Go back to the repair shop and they ask me for money, what should I do?" Zhao Zhou said coldly, "I'm the one who cares about you? What does it have to do with me? You quickly return the money to me." The other party did not expect that this person would not speak any truth at all, and said angrily, "A person like you deserves to be deceived and deceived into bankruptcy." After speaking, he ignored him and turned away. Zhao Zhou limped to catch up, and cursed, "You bastard, quickly return the money to me, otherwise I will never finish with you." Neurotic. The other party cursed, climbed onto the trailer and drove away. Zhao Zhou couldn't catch up with his truck, and his heart was extremely angry, but seeing that the other party had already left, he could do nothing, and his deep despair replaced the anger just now. Now, his top priority is how to deal with the 500,000 usury. At this moment, he felt that his life was almost desperate. At this time he thought of his girlfriend Wan. Zhao Zhou is also an orphan. He has no father, no mother, and no relatives. This girl is his girlfriend, so he felt that Wan was his only relative. Now that he has encountered such a major setback, When he is desperate and not knowing what to do, he just wants to see his beloved woman, hoping that his beloved woman can give him some comfort. So he wiped his face with his clothes, limped to the gate of the community, and stopped a taxi. The taxi driver had seen him look so terrible and didn't dare to pull over for him. But he grabbed the other side's rearview mirror and didn't let go, and shouted, "If you don't pull over for me today, I will complain to your company." The taxi driver did not dare to blatantly refuse the ride, so he could only get him in the car and drove to the neighborhood where his girlfriend's house was located according to his request. However, Zhao Zhou is now penniless and can't afford the taxi fare. He can only count in his heart. There is a very narrow alley near his girlfriend's house, and that alley cannot be driven in by cars, and it is very winding inside. If he asks the driver to stop at that alley and then get into the alley while he is unprepared, he should not be able to catch up with him. In this way, he won't have to pay for taxi fare. Zhao Zhou does what he thinks. When he was approaching his girlfriend's house, he asked the driver to stop at the alley. The driver turned off the meter and said, "A total of 45.